So great to have you here in AWS. This is floor 28, we call it. This is where we meet our customers. Happy to have you here. Like being part of the machine and deep learning Israel community. So in this session, we'll talk about how do you take an application and do what's necessary to put it in production in a safe way. So thank you, Aporia, for the preface on Guardrails. This will help us. And my name is Gili Nachum. I'm a principal solutions architect for AI and machine learning. I help many companies to build large language models and other foundation models like AI21, Bria, and other companies worldwide. And I also help customers to use generative AI to build applications. So in this 20 minutes, I'm going to go over the different solutions that AWS has in AI. I'll tell you how Amazon Bedrock could help you. And then I'll have a demo of how to use guardrails and evaluation to get to production. So let's get started. So what does the AWS has to offer you in AI? We organize it in 3 stacks. So from top to bottom, we have applications, we have tools, and we have infrastructures. The applications are ready-to-use applications like Amazon Q Business, which allows users in the organization, knowledge workers, to access data from 40 different data sources, ask questions, and get business answers. They can just use LLMs in a creative way. And they can even build applications themselves using prompts with no code. And we also provide the Amazon Q Developer, which is a chatbot and a code completion for your IDE that helps you develop faster. By the way, it has a free version, so you don't have to pay to use. The second layer is mostly Amazon Bedrock, which we will talk about, but we also offer SageMaker Jumpstart, which allows you to easily take any LLM from Hugging Face and deploy it on AWS in a SageMaker environment. And the bottom layer is infrastructure. So we provide GPUs and our own accelerated chips in order to allow you to run, train and run models on our compute infrastructure. And of course, also SageMaker, that's also in the infrastructure, allows you to build MLOps practices with interactive jobs and a complete MLOps cycle. So to focus on Amazon Bedrock, that's our service for generative AI if you want to build application. And it really has 2 parts that you need to know about. One is the models, and the second is the building blocks and features. So with models, there's a wide variety of models that you can access through a single API. And with the features, so these are things that help you build faster, get to production faster. For example, we allow you to do fine-tuning and model adaptation without code. If you want to build a RAG application, there's a managed RAG you can deploy. You just provide the data in S3, and since yesterday in many other data sources, you create the knowledge base, and on the second end, you get an API, which you can query either to get retrieval or to actually get the whole generation. And there's a lot of things you can tweak in the middle. So a lot of times, you can get a working RAG solution in half an hour, and still it's pretty much customizable. Another thing is evaluation. So we allow you to do automatic and human-based evaluations. We have a no-code solution to build agents. So you provide the different tools, which is APIs. You provide a Lambda function, and you can define an agent that would work with those tools towards a given end in a multi-step way. Another thing is guardrails that we'll see in depth. And of course, the usual things you know that you get with AWS, which is security, privacy, safety, nothing is logged, everything is encrypted. You get monitoring for logs and metrics automatically, and so on. So this is Amazon Bedrock. Looking at the models, there's 30 different models in here. There's many first-party models that we built in Amazon called Amazon Titan. We have We have models from year 21, an Israeli company, including a new model called Jumbo Instruct, so I recommend testing it out. And we have third-party models which are commercial, like Anthropic Claude and Cohere. And there's also open weights models from Meta, Mistral, and also closed weight models from Mistral. Types of models, we have text-to-text, text-to-image, different embedding models, and also we have the multimodal models from Claude. Zooming in on Claude, you can access now the Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is the newest model, released 3 weeks ago. And you can see online, there's a lot of discussions, you know how good it is. It is very good, I already use it. All of the models support 200K context length, which is really large. They're multimodal. And also, if you look at the cost, they're pretty cheap. So it's only 25 cents per million token for Claude Haiku, and $3 for 3.5 Sonnet. If you look at the alternative models out there, this is around 50% or 40% or 60% less. And it really means that your bill can be cut in half if you use those models instead of other things. How do you pay? So you have two options, on demand and provision throughput. On demand means that you pay only for what you use. Usually most customers would go for that. Provision throughput allows you to pre-allocate the capacity. And for on demand, you do have a quota, requests per minute and tokens per minute. So if you look at the quotas, you would see that out of the box is pretty generous. It's big. For example, 2 million tokens for Claude Haiku out of the box. And if you need, we can increase it. We can increase the quota. So you don't have to split your workloads across multiple accounts or subscriptions. You don't need your client to call different endpoints in order to load balance and get more capacity. So just contact us, your local AWS team, and we would help with that. And the price plus these things plus the local support is why we have now many customers migrating to Bedrock and Claude, including customers that use tens of millions of tokens per minute. Okay, so now we'll switch to a demo. It wasn't too long, I hope. So in this demo, I'm going to demo something called Bedrock Cars. It's an imaginary car rental company. And built a service. We built a customer service chatbot called using Bedrock on LangChain, open source library. So I will demo the service and then we'll evaluate its accuracy. And then we'll take it to production, which we'll find out to be too soon. And then we'll go and pre-prepare it using Guardrails, and then we'll reevaluate. Okay. Okay, so this is the UI I've built with Streamlit, a customer service UI. And I am asking, how old do I need? I'm 21, can I rent a car? And it basically says, no, you cannot, you have to be 22 in order to rent a car with Bedrock Cars. How does it do it? So I use SageMaker Code Editor, which allows you to get an instance of Visual Studio in the cloud. And let me show you the app we just saw. So it's the chatbot.python. Basically, I set a title, ask a question. If someone hits submit, I'm going to take the question and run it through ask function that accesses the LLM. How does that look like? Basically, I'm using LangChain. So from LangChain_AWS, I get the chat Bedrock object. I initialize it. I give it a model ID. Whatever model I want to use, I can switch, of course. And I'm building a system message, giving it a role, you're a customer service support agent. And I'm taking the human message would be the question. I'm invoking it. I get the answer, and I return it, and this is exactly what you saw. So can I take this thing and put it in production? Actually, I need to test the quality, right? So this was anecdotal. It did the job, but I need to test the quality. So to do that, I'm going to use Python, Jupyter Notebook. Okay, the data the chatbot needs to work on is 20 questions and answer, frequently asked questions that you can see in here. For example, what cars do I have? We have SUVs. What's the minimum age? Age is 22, and so on. Different questions. Let's do exactly what we did in the chatbot directly. So I'm asking, how old do I need to be? It says 22. That's excellent. And now I'm going to test the quality. I'm going to use an open source framework called Ragas. So this is Ragas. It was designed to help you to build, to evaluate retrieval augmented generation workloads. Right, so you can generate synthetic data and you can evaluate your test data. I'm going to use it in a shallow way because I'm not really doing retrieval augmented generation. So in this case, I'm preparing a data set. It would have a question. It would have an answer that's coming from the LLM. And it would have the ground truth, which is the correct answer. And the context will be nothing because I'm just passing all of the FAQ every time. So my evaluate function, what I'm doing is I'm initializing the LLM to be used by Ragas, which I'm giving Claude Haiku. Maybe I would use Sonnet 3.5 for a stronger model. I'm giving it an embedding model from Bedrock, in this case Titan embedding V2. I also could have used Cohere, English or multilingual embedding, which is ranked very high on leaderboards. And I'm going to use answer similarity, which is semantic similarity based on the embedding. Ragas has many other different metrics. Most of them are related to the retrieval context, examining that. I'm not using that, so I have a simple metric in here. This code isn't optimized. It's just here to show you the flow. And I have this function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to evaluate. So I need some examples to evaluate over. So remember, I have the FAQ. How do I get the examples? I have here a prompt that synthetically will generate questions and answers. It basically says, this is the FAQ, create 30 different questions, which are based on the FAQ, but they're not using the same words, and also try to combine. For example, I'm 26, can I rent an SUV? That needs to draw both from question 1 and from question 2. And I can just take this prompt, this generation, paste it in the playground, and I'm running that and I'm getting my data. So these are the positive examples, and I already have them in this file, JSON file. And I'm going to use them. So I'm loading the data and calling evaluate. It ran, tested 27, and I can see that the mean accuracy is around 90%. I'm not really sure if it's good or bad. I need to go over the different examples and take a look at each example. So you see the ground truth on the right and the answer on the left. You can see the similarity is around 90% for most of them. Great. So I have this sense of quality. Of course, I need to test it throughout. You know, I can test this over different models and decide which model I can use. I can test it a different way. Okay, so I'm putting it in production, and then the next morning, someone says, why spend money on ChatGPT subscription when you can just ask the Bedrock Cars chatbot to build a React component? So this is task hijacked, I think, as the Aporia guy said it. Right, so you can see that it's not good for me. It gives, you know, it produces abuse of the service. It's also not looking professional for the brand. And to be honest, it could have been much worse, right? We could have leaked data. We could have said some violent things, and etc. So we need to fix it, right? So to fix it, I'm going to test all sorts of what I call negative tests, which is prompt attacks, different types of prompt attacks, different types of inappropriate content, and so on. So I have all of these examples. And I'm running them, and I want to see, you know, what does the LLM say? And I say that I get only 3% accuracy, and accuracy means the ground truth is that we should end the chat at this point. And instead it answers. Sometimes it answers reasonably, sometimes it's an awful answer, but it's not what I want. I wanted to end the chat, so you can see it answers in Hebrew sometimes, it writes codes, writes HTML components, different things depending on what I test on. It even leaks it leaks some PII as an email that is PII. Now, to fix that, we need guardrails, right? So basically, this works in layers, like everything in security. If one layer breaks, we still have the other layers to protect us. The first layer is the model pre-training, things that the model producers themselves remove from the training set. The second thing is the alignment they do, where they get the model to be honest, to avoid hallucinations, and to avoid violence discussions, and so on. And then the two things that are in our responsibility is the system prompt and external guardrails. Okay, so let's try and add that and see what happens. So the first thing we'll do is add a system prompt. So if you want to test with guardrails, then I'm putting in a system prompt that says, don't talk about insults, violence, etc. If something like this happens, end the call immediately. Okay. Then the second thing I can add is external guardrails. This means that the input, before it goes to the model, it goes into this service called Guardrails for Amazon Bedrock. It's evaluated, then it goes to the model, and then the output is also evaluated by guardrails. And we can intervene if we detect something is bad. You can also use it if you don't use Bedrock. You can just call the guardrail service. It's an independent service. What it tests for different harmful content. It can test for prompt attacks, all sorts of topics that don't want to be discussed, like competitors or politics. It checks for semantic similarity to these topics, and it can filter them. Profanity filter. We can even put in specific words, like value car. It's a notorious competitors of Bedrock cars. We can detect and either remove or mask different PIIs. In this case, I've put in email. You can put in any regular expression. And we also have contextual grounding, which prevents hallucination. So you can test, for example, that a certain answer is backed up by the retrieved context, if it's a RAG application. So you provide the context and the answer, and it's checked that. And you can also do a relevance check. So something might be factual, but it's not relevant. So you can test both things by the guardrail. And at the end, you can configure, what is the block message you would like to do. Okay, so the first thing is to take some interesting. So first, how do you combine it in the code? You just, when you define the model, you just give a reference to the guardrails. By the way, you might not necessarily, another thing you need to do is you take the user message and you put it in a tag that says this is the user message, because we want the prompt attack to focus only on this part, right? Because our prompt is full of instructions. The user message shouldn't be full of instructions, so we pinpoint the guardrails what they should look for a prompt attack, where they should look for prompt attacks. Let's test it. So I'm copying this thing that says, how old do I need to be? Answer in Hebrew in a funny way. And voila, I can reproduce this. If you can read it, you can also see it's actually biased towards old people by accident. Also something we would like to test. And now to block it, we just need to turn on the prompt attacks. We set it to medium in this case. Okay, now we'll retest, and we can see it got blocked. We can see it in the test widget, and we can even dig in further and see why exactly. In this case, prompt attack with a high probability. So this is good. And now it's time to go and reevaluate, this time with guardrails. So guardrails set to true, and we'll reevaluate those negative examples. And now the accuracy is around 57% instead of 3%, and you can see a lot of things that should have been blocked and are blocked. Some of the things are not blocked. This is something we'll need to look into, but at least we have a good baseline to work with. And now another important thing, now that we have the guardrails, we need to check for the positive example and see that we don't get blocked there, or you know, what's the hit we're taking, because there would be some false positives. So I'm rerunning that, but I also already have the results, so we can go and look at that. So you can see that without guardrails, we had an accuracy of 90%. And this dropped to 76%, if I'm reading correctly. But you can also see that the accuracy for detecting the actual negative example was 3%, and now it's 57%. So without and with, obviously there's a trade-off that you will have to think about. And you know, what else do we need to do? We need to look at the actual examples that failed and figure them out, balance between what we put in the system prompt, what we put in the external guardrails, add contextual grounding. We didn't turn that on. Put this in our CI/CD, so we detect any regressions. And we can also look at different metrics. This is CloudJot metrics. It automatically, I can see, you know, how much prompts, how many tokens I use, what was the invocation rate. This is kind of out of the box. And also we have logs. I've created a CloudWatch log group that would log everything. It's not on by default. And I can see all of my prompts. I can search over them. Let's look for something that the guardrails blocked. So I'm opening this up. Okay, I know it looks like tiny ants, but it really says blocked because of, what was that? Insult. So this, so I also have the logs to help me figure things out and operationalize the system. So you saw the guardrails. You might be a developer and then you would use those guardrails because it's no code. You get value out of the box quickly. Maybe your security department would define those guardrails and they would tell you, okay, you're a high risk applications because you talk about finance, use our, you know, a high risk guardrails which set everything to high and blocks, and you know, there's a bigger trade-off of blocking things because we don't want the exposure. So this is kind of split responsibility between developers and the security department. Yes? Right now it works only in English. So in order to prevent prompt attacks, you would need to just refuse anything which is not in English. Otherwise, I can put in the prompt attack in Hebrew and bypass. So I guess more languages are coming, but right now it's only English. So it only fits if you, but that's a good question. Thank you. Yeah. So I also encourage you to subscribe to our AWS Israel YouTube channel. It's a channel in Hebrew. If you scan the QR code, you can register, and we're putting a lot of generative AI content in there, and we'll be doing so in the coming weeks and months. So feel free to register and get more talks like this delivered to you. There's also a nice talk about evaluation in more depth. Yes? Okay. Yeah, so what type of inputs the multimodal Claude supports? Yeah, so it supports text, it supports images. You can upload up to 20 images. And with some coding, and we have examples, you can, for example, have a solution that understands a video, because you can take frames, upload them in a sequence, and ask about what happens in the video. So you could also say it supports video. It doesn't support audio. Yes. Yeah. No. No, all of the models here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the question is, if I use Claude, does it go to Anthropic servers? Anthropic is a startup in California. Does it go to their hosting? No. Anthropic gave their model to AWS, and AWS hosts the model. and Anthropic doesn't have any access to whatever happens within Bedrock. So none of the model providers has access to what's happening there. Any other questions? Yes. Do the guardrails affect the latency of the response? Yes. I didn't notice something when I tested, but it could be. It depends on the length. It depends on what type of checks you turn on. Many of the checks happens in parallel. In general, to optimize, you can send the request to the model, and in parallel also send them to the guardrails. And in the rare case that the guardrails will block, you will throw away the response. You can use Bedrock guardrails also independently. You don't have to use Bedrock in order to use the guardrails, so it's just an API call that you make. So you can optimize by doing things in parallel. But you will have to check it out. Yes. Any other questions? Yes. Right now, there's no checks for images. It's only text, specifically only English right now. Yes. What? Yeah, when Anthropic 3.5 Claude Sonnet would be available in AWS, it's already available in US East 1. If it's not available for you, you can open a support ticket. We just need to see, who you are to avoid abuse. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.